How does somebody become the voice and in many ways the glue for a passionate rock and roll fan base? We'll uncover the answer to that and much more in this special holiday replay edition of No Wrong Choices, the Career Journey podcast. I'm Larry Samuels, soon to be joined by my co-hosts, Tushar Saxena and Larry Shea. Before we kick off, I have one request. If you enjoy what you're about to hear, please follow and like our show. It really helps us grow and to keep bringing these great stories forward. Now, here's our original episode from January 26th, 2023. Joining us on today's episode is a talk show host, DJ, producer, and leading voice of SiriusXM's E Street Radio, Jim Rotolo. And, typically this is where I throw the conversation to either Larry or Tushar, but as the resident Springsteen fanatic on this podcast, I'm going to keep the microphone for a moment.
I take some offense to
that. With no offense to that whatsoever. So, to me, this is a meaningful conversation and one that I've really wanted to have because I've been listening to E Street Nation or E Street Radio for years, and I've really enjoyed Jim's work, and he does such a great job interviewing people and digging into so many great things tied to Bruce Springsteen. But the thing that I haven't heard is his story. So this, to me, felt like a wonderful opportunity to bring Jim out there a little bit, out front, so we get to know him a little bit better.
And look, of the three of us, I am the only one who actually lives in Jersey. I was bred, I was raised here in Jersey. I was raised here in New Jersey. So it goes without saying that Bruce is in the blood. Now, I'll grant you, I am not as big a fan as you are. You are an uber super fan. I am a fan of Bruce Springsteen. And look, it's part of the resume if you live here in Jersey. It's part of the job description. You got to be a fan of Bruce. But with that being said, the other thing I'm a big fan of is Jim Rotolo, because Jim is a radio guy. Radio guys love other radio guys and love to have that story. It's all about the war stories when it comes to radio people. So I'm really looking forward to getting some of Jimmy's backstory, because I've known him since Sirius. But I got to be honest, I don't know much of Jim's story prior to Sirius.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of Jim Rotolo. I mean, I still work at Sirius, and so does Jim, so we're colleagues still. But one of the things that's happened because of the pandemic is we're not going into the office and seeing each other anymore, So I used to bump into Jim in the hallways, and it was never a 2-minute conversation. We would always, hang out and talk about his Raiders or my Buffalo Bills or whatever. And he's one of the good guys in the business, like you said, T,
Yep. He's just a good guy, yeah.
He's just a great guy. And we did a show together, and I'm hoping it comes up because I was really proud of the show that we did together, Guys Uncensored. And it was a lot of fun to do it. And he's just, you meet a lot of people in this business. Jim's one of the good guys, and it's going to be super great to catch up with him.
For sure. Well, here's one of the good guys, Jim Rotolo. Now joining No Wrong Choices is a talk show host, DJ, producer, and leading voice of SiriusXM's E Street Radio. I'm, of course, referring to Jim Rotolo. Jim, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, Jim, I've had, this is Tushar. Jim, I've had the opportunity to know you for a long time. And
yes.
Like all old radio people, we love to talk war stories, and you and I probably talked to more than our fair share at whatever local bar we had a chance to sit down and share a couple of drinks. Now, obviously, you're a big shot over at E Street Radio, but I'll say this: I don't know a great deal of your backstory. To be honest with you, I'd love to know, much like a lot of us, how you got in the business. Where was your start in radio?
So I started at the hot rockin', flame-throwing Z100 in New York City, the top 40 station, as a phone screener. It was a part-time phone screener shift at night, and I was answering request lines and then also phone screening for Love Phones, which was, if you guys remember.
What year was that?
That was 94, late 94. I started in December of 94.
So you met Carolla and all that stuff?
No, that's a different show. That's the funny thing. People confuse. There was Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew did Loveline in L.A.
Oh, Loveline, okay.
In New York City, there was Love Phones with Dr. Judy Kuriansky and Chris Jagger. And that was what I was part of.
I do remember that one. Okay.
And so wait, you were a call screener for this? And you, what is the show about? It was about love connections and problems with relationships and things like that? What are we talking about?
It was love, sex, and relationships.
Nice.
Yeah, that's what it was. And I was screening the call. So I was on the front lines, like listening to these people tell all these stories. And, some of them were fake, of course. But, my job was to figure out, make good radio. It didn't matter if your call was fake. Can you pull it off?
Yeah. It's a highly entertaining subject, to say the least. Let's go back a little further, though, because I do want to know, did you study radio in college? You said you got this job a little after you graduated. Was the dream always radio, or did you fall into it? And how did that happen? How was the transition, and did you study to become this?
Well, I did, yeah. So when I was in high school, I really didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do until maybe about my junior or senior year. And I was I played sports. I played football and baseball in high school. And I knew I wasn't going to be good enough to get scholarships and move on to the next level. So I had to start thinking about, what do I really want to do? And I wasn't quite sure, but something about performing was always something I was interested in. Whether it was on a baseball field or on a football field. So I started thinking about acting, and then I thought, well, I want to eat. So maybe acting's not a good...
So I know what I'll do. I'll go into radio.
Well, really, my thoughts were to be somewhere in the TV production or radio production. I was always a big music fan. And so that was really the goal, to maybe be a cameraman or I didn't even know what those jobs were. I knew nothing about the industry. I had no help. I didn't know, I thought DJs played their own records, or their own songs. I didn't know anything about program directors or anything like that. So I went to college for communications at William Patterson College, which is now a university in Wayne, New Jersey, and just tried to absorb as much as I could. And it's funny, during that time, I commuted. I didn't live away at college. Once a week, I would go grocery shopping for my grandparents. They were getting up in years and weren't really moving around much. And my grandfather, who was this old Ukrainian guy, would sit in the living room and listen to the radio, like many of that generation did. And he would listen to talk radio. And he'd have me sit there and listen to this guy and listen to this guy. And I was kind of captivated by it because the people that he was listening to were powerful. They had a command of the English language, and they were also they were very good storytellers. And I said to myself, that's something I would be interested in doing. As well as, maybe playing music. So that's sort of where I started leaning towards radio.
And did you leverage that at William Patterson? Were you on the air there? Did you do a bunch of shows?
I did. So the real funny thing is, and this is, as all of us are radio guys, you'll appreciate, most college radio, you get to do your own show and you get to bring your own music in and kind of create your own little, niche show. Not at William Patterson. We were we would run a professional radio station, which meant a program director, a music director, sales team. I was actually sales manager. We had commercials, and the format that was selected was adult contemporary. So now you have these, so now I'm 20 years old and I'm playing, Michael Bolton Said I Love You, But I Lied. And it's like, this is not what
you had to sell that.
Or if I ever hear Ace of Base, I Saw the Sign One More Time. I mean, these were the songs that I was playing, and I was doing a 6 a.m. shift, and it was just like torture. But
I do like Don't Turn Around by Ace of Base. I can't lie.
But Michael Bolton at 6 a.m., that's got to be tough.
And Meatloaf, I'd Do Anything for Love. I mean, it was all of that. It was that Bryan Adams song from the Robin Hood sound, of those songs, one after another. And every shift we played them. And you could not deviate. The program director, who was a professor on the campus, he would pull you off.
You and I have a very similar story in that sense, Jim, is that I started off, obviously, same way, college radio. I was over at Fordham. So for me, it was WFUV. FUV was the same way. It was a professional station. I was part of the student staff for sports. And the same thing, we had a very specific, we had a hierarchy there as well. And we ran a professional station we ran as close to a professional station as possible. I think at some point, I was obviously one of the on-air hosts and a play-by-play guy. I never got to be the sports director over there, but I understand where you're coming from. And yes, William Pat, even a couple of the other schools in the New Jersey area had that same type of format. So your time there really set you up well to move into the big New York market. Did you do any internships then during your time at William Pat, or no?
I did not. This is probably, it's a bit, I guess it's ignorant now to think about it, but I didn't quite grasp the concept of working for no money. I just refused to do it. And also,
it's not ignorant. I don't know why I did it either.
Yeah, and also I was bartending 5 days a week, pulling in, some serious money. So the thought of giving up a bar shift where I could have pulled a few $100 in to go, get coffee for somebody or, whatever, be a seat filler on a TV set, a talk show, just seemed ridiculous to me. I just didn't understand the concept. At least pay me something. I would have taken I would have taken a few bucks. But just don't, I never grasped that concept. So I just never did an internship.
So how do you get the job at Z100 then? Is this just radio experience in college lent itself to you being hired? How do you make that transition?
Well, it's funny, because we're talking about a time before the internet. And that was one of the toughest parts of that was I graduated college, and the one thing my college, and I can't say this about other universities or whatever, there was no preparation for what the job market was like. They just sort of said, well, good luck.
Yeah,
and
send you out there.
Your own.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, so I had no direction whatsoever, and I remember coming to New York City, just basically getting dressed up and walking around New York City and trying to find where the record companies were and where the TV stations were, and just seeing with resumes in a briefcase, just trying to figure out how to get my name in, if I could just get past the reception desk or whatever.
Right.
This is what you had to do, or make phone calls. And I didn't have much success. I did get an interview at Atlantic Records once. But the funny thing was, in that summer that I graduated college, there was a job fair at a hotel near where I lived, like a ballroom kind of thing. And Z100 happened to be there. Now, and it was funny because it wasn't any other radio stations. It was all local warehouses and factories and corporate stuff, and Z100. And they were looking for salespeople. And it just so happened that I was a sales manager, which was in title only. I don't think I actually sold a single thing when I was
cares?
Right, that's what I said. It says it. The title says it all. Sales
Looks
manager.
good on a business card.
Yeah, exactly. So I gave them my resume, and that was it. I didn't get a call until that December, and they said, it's not a sales job, but it's a phone screening job. It's part-time. It paid minimum wage. And I said, absolutely. That's all I wanted. I just wanted to get into the building. I'll figure everything else out once I get in the door. But that was the goal at that time, was just get in the door and learn as much as you can. And that's sort of what I did. I tried to take full advantage of that when I was at Z100.
It's just such a different time today. So you get in the building, you're working Love Phones. When did you start to create, a path for yourself? Like, when did you start to take on bigger assignments, bigger projects, and become Jim Rotolo, or at least get onto that path?
Well, the funny thing is, Z100 actually became nationally syndicated, and through a series of changes that happened in the show, within 2 years, I was the producer of a nationally syndicated, top-rated talk show. Love Phones was on 55 stations across the country, and I was the producer. And I was the producer at that time, and that was a big accomplishment. And for me, I thought it was, and that was great. And then things kind of changed. The show ran its course; it died out, and my feeling was always, well, keep moving and stay employed no matter what, because if this show gets canceled, you're out, and you may not get back in. So I had learned a lot of production. So I learned how to do editing. I learned how to do pretty much everything behind the scenes. And that's sort of what I did for many years, working for Westwood One and Premier Radio Network and MJI Broadcasting. I went behind the scenes for many years. I ended up producing some talk shows again in the late 90s on an internet radio company called eyada.com. Like yada, 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 with an E in front of it, which was a lot of fun, and except that we didn't get any phone calls because everybody was still using a dial-up. We were about a year and a half away from the technology, but
how long were you at EYADA for?
Almost a year. I would say. Well, I think we did a year. I think 99 into 2000, right before. Yeah, I think we were there for the turn of the century. And then,
Jim, I'm going to tell you this. You and I may have met at some point over there.
Were you at EYADA?
I worked there.
Did you work there?
I worked there for like a year. And part-time, a little bit here and there. But I definitely did some work over there. I worked with, you remember Ellen Roberts?
Yeah, sports.
Yeah, she was doing a show, I forget with who at the time.
Was it Don LaGreca?
Yeah, she did a show with Don.
Yes.
I would board up that show on occasion.
Okay.
Small world.
So
You and I probably met over there.
Yeah, so I was over there. I produced a whole bunch of shows there. And I ended up producing another sex show called Sex Bites. It was hosted by Bob Berkowitz. I did that show.
I remember that show. Yes, I remember that show.
I produced that at one time, and then I did a couple of health and fitness shows, which I really enjoyed. That was my favorite thing. We had a health channel, and it was a lot of fun. It was a great time, and that ran its course. I think they laid half of us off, when they realized we weren't making any money. Typical startup internet company at the time. And then I landed back in the syndication companies behind the scenes, and I'm trying to think, that's right around the time Sirius satellite radio started. And that was a goal, to get to work at Sirius, because I heard so many cool things about that place. And I interviewed like 5 times. And every time I was promised a job being a producer. I think Maxim Radio, all these places were promising me jobs as a producer. And every time they were about to bring me in and sign the papers, there was a hiring freeze. So I had to wait, and I had to keep waiting. I ended up over at another short-term company called Air America Radio in early 2004, which was basically, I think it was just basically a Democrat Party funded political AM channel. It was right around the time of Bush Kerry. So we had Al Franken, we had Janine Garofalo, we had Mark Maron. A Chuck D from
Lynn
Public.
Samuel, I think, was there too, right?
Lynn was there, yes. Lynn was there. We had Chuck D from Public Enemy.
I remember that, yes.
We had that. Now, I wasn't producing any shows. They had brought in their own people, each of the hosts. Rachel Maddow was there. She was nice. I really liked her. And we did that. I did commercial production, which was interesting because I sat in the studio all day and we had no commercials. So
Good job.
Yeah, I did great. I got to go. It was nice in the summertime. Summertime was nice. I went out for 2-hour walks in the city. It was fun. And then
perfect radio job.
Yeah, exactly. And then right around that point, I got a call from a guy named John McDermott, who I know you guys know.
Yeah, we all know John. Sure.
So I forgot. I did interview for John McDermott. He was a program director at a talk station in Long Island. And I drove all the way out, like way out on the island, which was far from me in Jersey, to be the morning show producer. And he liked me, and we had a good conversation, but that never never materialized, which turned out to be a good thing. So then John McDermott, a year later, is at Sirius Satellite Radio, and he remembered me, and he called me in, and he said, "We have a brand new show with a brand new host. His name is Dave Marsh, the rock critic from Cream Magazine and all that." And I'm like, oh, wow. So they say he's going to do a Sunday morning show there's a producer position for you. He's never done radio before. You have a lot of radio producing experience. Teach him the ropes, get him through. And that's what I did. And 19 years later, I'm still producing that show.
Wow.
So Dave's still at it. He's doing great. We've got, still doing the shows there. And that was sort of my beginning and I'm still producing. I don't really jump on the air till I was on in pockets, but I guess this is where the on-air part comes in. I ended up getting hired full-time as a morning show producer for the LGBT channel that we used to have called OutQ.
OutQ, sure.
Yeah.
So they again had 2 hosts that had never done radio before. And so I started teaching them how to work as a team, morning show, how to create topics, get phone calls, get people interested in your lives and all this kind of stuff. And we had a lot of fun and it was a great time. And I really, really enjoyed it, except I hated getting up at 4 a.m.
Of course.
and so I was on air with them. We were like a team, it was like Larry, Cheryl, and Jim, and it was fun. And we were all playing, like a typical morning team, ribbing on each other and having different topics that we would bring in, and we talked about our lives.
Was that Larry Flick? Was that Larry's?
Larry Flick.
That was Larry Flick's show. Okay, I know. Yeah, I know. Great guy.
Yeah,
great guy. He moved to England, I think. Yeah,
Wales.
Yeah,
Wales.
That's right. There you go.
It was a lot of fun, and it kind of it ran its course as well, and I started to get really comfortable on the mic. I started really feeling my own, and and I had people that would call in, and I had fans and stuff, and it was really nice. But I knew that it's an LGBT channel, and I'm not going to get my show. I'm not going to get a show on this because I'm not, I don't fit into that. So it felt to me I needed to move on to something else. And it just so happened that we had another channel at the time called Cosmo Radio, which was Cosmopolitan Magazine. And they had a new morning show, 2 young girls who were great, and they needed somebody to teach them radio. So I sort of found this role at Sirius at the time, teaching talk radio to people who had never done it before.
It's a good role to have.
It was, and it was great. And I had a great time with Taylor Stricker and Tia, who I forget her last name, but Taylor's stayed for quite a while.
She did. She had a show for a long time there. Yeah.
Yeah, she did. I think she's got a podcast now. And that was a lot of fun. I had a great time with them, and I learned a lot. I know more about makeup than I ever thought I ever would. And that's where, I met Larry Shea.
Yeah,
we were working together.
That's right.
So your life changed.
That's right.
Your life changed at that very moment.
Straight downhill.
That's right.
So one of the shows that they came up with on Cosmo Radio was a show called Guys Uncensored. And the concept was, for the listeners, which was predominantly female, this is what guys talk about when women are not around. Okay.
This was perfect.
And
So you want to talk to Larry Shea
Yes, you
about
want to
that?
talk to Larry Shea about
what
this.
does he know?
Without question.
So they said to me, how do you, this is your thing, round up your friends, like 3 or 4 guys, do it someplace on location if you want, and just make sure you kind of keep the topics to a certain thing, and that could be somewhat related to the magazine each month or whatever. So topical. So I said, okay, fine. I had a connection at Mickey Mantle's Bar and Grill that is no longer there on West 56th Street. So we did the show at Mickey Mantle's once a week. We taped it. I had portable equipment, and I asked Larry to be a part of it, and it was us, and I had a friend, Andrew, who was there.
I mean, this was the best gig ever. Can I just jump in here? Because, you go to Mickey Mantle's, you order a beer, you have a burger or something, they crack the mics, and you're talking about, a bunch of guys hanging out at Mickey Mantle's. It was
Right.
the best, man. Drinking beers. I mean, what could go wrong?
And we had a good deal. We had a good deal because the beer was free. We just had to pay for food.
That's right.
That's all we had to pay for.
That's right.
So the best part of this, so this is really my debut into hosting something. So I'm hosting a roundtable once a week, and we're talking about topics, and we're recording all this. So I think we recorded about 15 episodes, and I want to say maybe 5 aired.
Right.
Because the truth of the matter is, they didn't want to hear what guys say when the girls are not around.
That's right.
And I remember having these arguments with the team, like my bosses, and they were like, we can't air this. And I would say, why? And they said, because women don't want to hear this. I said, well, this is the concept of the show. This is what men talk about. I said, this is what men talk about. And they were like, yeah, but they don't want you to talk about that. But I said, that's not how this. Anyway, the whole thing was frustrating. And it was great. We had a great time doing it.
It was a good time, Jim. Let's be real.
It was a great time. In fact, my friend Andrew still sends me text messages. He still has the recordings of them.
I do too.
And he plays them.
I do too.
I'll have to dig those up one day. And so here's where things turn a bit. And I don't know if you guys knew this. I quit.
I did not know. I didn't know.
I quit.
You quit Sirius or you quit the show?
I quit Sirius for the. Well, so here's what I did. There was I was at a point where I couldn't do this anymore. I just couldn't do. I was doing the morning show with Cosmo, and the girls were great, and it was all fun, and I was doing Guys Uncensored. But I got to the point where I was stuck. There was no way I could get out. There was no place for me to break through and do this, and so I voluntarily stepped down with the exception of I still want to produce Dave Marsh's show on Sundays. So I went from full-time status down to working 1 day a week. And I needed to do that. So I went and I said, okay, I need to reinvent myself. I'm tired of being a talk show producer because I did get to the point where if I'm teaching everybody else how to do radio and I'm telling them what to say and then they're just saying it, well, then they're not the talent. They're just doing what I'm telling them to do. Well, I can do that myself. And that's sort of like that light bulb went off in my head. And that's where I decided I need to do this stuff on myself. So that's why I had to get away from Sirius for a little bit.
So what was the plan? You want to get away, but you must have had a game plan. How am I going to reinvent myself? What did you do?
Yeah. So the plan was to get it into music, and I wanted to. So I initially tried to get it on the music side at Sirius, and there just wasn't anything happening at the time, which was fine. There's a local rock station along the Jersey Shore called WRAT, the Rat 95.9.
Everybody goes to the Rat, baby.
The Rat
goes to the Rat.
The Rat is where where you make your bones, You get Carl Kraft, who's still the program director for over 20 years. I knew a few people there. I sent an audition tape in. He gave me an overnight shift, like midnight to 5 a.m. He sound checked me and he said, well, the place didn't burn down in the overnight, so we'll put you in the weekend rotation. And that's all I wanted, So I was doing weekends at the Rat. I had Sunday mornings with Dave Marsh, and I went back to bartending for a little while to make ends meet. It's what I had to do, but it was all worth it. It was a strange time, but it was worth it because my relationship with Dave was good, really good, and this is where the Springsteen part all ties in for people that don't know. So Dave Marsh wrote several books about Bruce. His wife, Barbara Carr, was one of Bruce's managers. And so I was spending time with Dave, was able to go to a bunch of the concerts, and I've met people there. And they had come up with this idea of E Street Radio for SiriusXM, which was only supposed to be a temporary channel for Bruce's Born to Run anniversary box set. Bruce came up to Sirius, Dave and him did a nice interview, I engineered it, it was wonderful. Not thinking long term, well, the channel disappeared after it ran its course, but Dave Marsh and Bruce's management and management at SiriusXM decided to bring the channel back as the first artist-based 24/7 channel on the platform. And so now there was a place for me to come back to. And Dave had a show of his own called Live from E Street Nation. I was producing that, and I was back full time with the company. And I'm still doing the Rat, WRAT, and then I think I moved over to WDHA, which is another station in Jersey at the time. And I was trying to think of something I could do on my own. And I had this idea. Now, we're all sports fans, right?
Sure.
So we love, we go to games. I know you're Bills fans with Giants. I don't know what other teams you guys like.
Giants over here.
Giants. Okay. Right. So I had a Jet. I'm not a Jet fan, but I had Jet season tickets for many, many years. Me and 7 of my closest friends. And when I tell you we tailgated hard, man, we had some crazy stuff, but we took it seriously. It was important to us. We looked forward to those Sundays. And much like going to a concert, you tailgate, in this big stadiums or arenas. And what do you do with those tailgates? Well, you drink beer and you eat and you talk to the people that pulled up next to you and to the left and to the right. And you talk about, if it's sports, you talk about the games, all the different details. What place are they in? Did you see last week? I hope this week this guy kicks better, all that kind of stuff. And the same thing with concerts. You talk about, I saw the band on the last tour, or I hope they played this song tonight. So I had this idea of a tailgate party on the radio with Bruce Springsteen fans. And it would be a request show where people would request songs, but I would have a topic every week, much like if you were in a parking lot talking amongst people you had never met before. Anything from favorite opening song of a Bruce Springsteen album, or, a favorite female character, or, best live version of whatever, Thunder Road. There was all these different topics you could come up with. And I said, I can do this. I can build this community because it's there. And thankfully, SiriusXM and Dave Marsh and John Landau Management, they all gave me the green light to create this show. And in 2011, I debuted The Wild and the Innocent with Jim Rotolo on Sunday nights. On Friday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time. And I knew the audience was there, and they showed up almost immediately, which I couldn't believe. And it's been quite something. I've been doing the show for over 10 years now. And there's a community of fans, actually a community of friends. I just did an event last weekend, and people had come up to me. This woman came in from Montana, and she said, I'm here with, and she mentioned 3 other people. And she said, we're all friends, and we all met because of your show.
Look at that, Jim.
It's interesting, Jim. I am a member of that community. I have been listening to your show since the very beginning. I'm a Springsteen fanatic. I've always followed along very closely. And one of the things that I wanted to get to was, how does it feel to be the voice of a community? I mean, is there a pressure that comes with that? Is there a sense of responsibility with that? Like, what is that like?
It's a good question. I knew I could build something, and I knew that I could bring people together. I mean, it helps to have Bruce Springsteen music to do that with. But I don't see myself as any kind of like leader or kind of, I'm the creator of this. I mean, I did create it. I created the show, but it's just this nice community of people. It's a bit overwhelming at times because, especially when you go out to shows or events and you meet all these people and they want to tell you their story, and it's beautiful. I do my very best to listen to everybody and give them their time because they have something that they want to share with me, and it's important to them. I meet families of Bruce Springsteen fans, generations. We've got a tour coming up, so I'll be out on the road seeing some of these shows, and we'll be doing some live broadcasts and things like that. It's amazing. It went far beyond what I ever realized it would be. And I'm very grateful for everybody that invests in the show and invests in E Street Radio. Like I said, it's a dream come true, and I just knew I could make something happen, and I could just do something more than play songs on the radio.
That's amazing.
And that's
great.
And that's kind of what I wanted to do.
I think it's a good time to ask this question because we're talking about the community, and I don't want this to sound weird, but like, do you get asked to get messages? Do people treat you as a bit of a conduit to Bruce? And like, if so, how do you handle that? Like, obviously you're nice, but how do you handle, it is a responsibility, right? You're representing a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. I get asked a lot of favors. People ask, can you get this to Bruce? I get that. And, I tell people as nicely as I can, I don't have that. I have a line to the management company, and I do have a line to Bruce for certain things, but it's not like I can text him and say, what are you doing for the Giant game this Sunday? You want to go out? Like I can't do that. And then I would never do that. There's boundaries, you have to have certain boundaries, and you have to respect people's privacy. And so as much as I would try to really like to help everybody, but that's not my job. I can't help everybody's request. Can you have Bruce call into my mom's, birthday this week? No, I can't. I can't do that.
But Jim Rotolo can. Are you on Cameo?
Am I on Cameo? No, I'm not.
Could be an opportunity.
Cameo, dude. Come on.
All right, I'm writing that down after we record this.
Check out
create Cameo link
That's
or
right.
whatever I need to do there.
So Jim, like for the vision of the channel, you've brought forward different programs. You're obviously the lead voice on E Street Radio. The Wild, the Innocent, Growing Up is now out there. Like, what is your role? What is your participation, what is your role when it comes to content, vision? Who puts that forward for E Street Radio? And are other people like John Landau and Bruce? Like how does all that work?
Well, it's interesting. It's myself, Vinny Uccarello, who has the title of channel director. I am considered the executive producer and on-air host of the channel, if you want to go in titles. And Vinny and I work really well together as a team. We're a great partnership. We both have a lot of different ideas that we put together, and we talk about what's coming up in the world of Bruce, calendar-wise, anniversaries, special guests, all those kinds of things. And we just always have different ways of taking the music and making it fresh again in some way, like repackaging it in certain ways. And everybody at John Landau and Bruce himself have been very, very supportive. Bruce did 29 episodes of his own show that he created during the pandemic called From My Home to Yours. And he recorded those at home. I helped produce those shows. So Bruce and I had lots of conversations during the pandemic about putting those shows together. They're all on him. I mean, he picked all the music and all of that. I just kind of put them together and seen whatever, little fine touches it needed. So, I mean, it is a team effort. My role is just to kind of keep the forward momentum on everything. There's lots of things going on. There's the Springsteen Archives and Center for American Music. They're building a whole museum in Long Branch on Monmouth University. So that's under construction, and they have it's officially certified from Bruce. So they have all these great archives and stuff, and memorabilia. So there's that. The guy is 73 years old. He's still making albums, and now he's going on a world tour. That helps.
Yeah, for sure.
It helps that he's active and he's busy and he's doing things. So we just keep moving along, and now that we've got this tour that's about to happen, or by the time this airs, we'll have already been underway. So, and I think that's going to last for the next couple of years. So I'm excited about that. It keeps me busy, and I get to go see Bruce Springsteen concerts, which isn't a bad gig.
You mentioned the pandemic just a few minutes ago. Would you say the show was more important or as important during pandemic?
Which show? Bruce's show or my show?
Yeah, or the channel in general, like your show, Bruce's show, etc.
Well, what really, one of the things that changed during the pandemic was I had only been on air twice a week. I was doing the Live from E Street Nation with Dave Marsh, and then my Wild and Innocent show on Friday nights. Once the pandemic started, I started going on the air every day, and that's what I'm doing currently. I'm on 5 days a week In the mornings, I do 9 to noon Eastern, and then I come back and do 5 to 8, Eastern
Why
time.
the change up?
To keep in contact with people, I guess a friendly voice, to kind of keep the community, So, during the pandemic, everybody disappeared. Everybody went and locked, down. And, I think the great thing about what we did with E Street and SiriusXM in general is just we found ways to keep the connection there between our subscribers and the music, We were live on New Year's Eve of 2020. I did the countdown to midnight. I had Bruce call in and, Southside Johnny. We tried to comfort as best we could during those times. And Bruce definitely stepped up by doing these radio shows from my home to yours, and the fact that he wanted to get out there and stay connected with his audience. And especially there were some rocky times during that period. So, he had his own commentary on what was happening, and it felt comforting. And that's the word I think many of the fans have said to me, that during the pandemic, it felt good to hear your voice, which is a really sweet compliment. So that's what we did during that time. And Bruce released an album during that period as well. But those From My Home to Yours shows really made a huge difference. And then I was kind of there doing my thing as well. So we upped our game during the pandemic, and I think we did a really good job.
Yeah, I think it's suffice to say this community and what you do is very special and unique among fan bases, and you are that conduit, right? It's super important. I love hearing about your story and how you got to where you are. I mean, do you have a professional highlight at this point? Is it a moment? Is it an interview? Is it a concert? Is it give me your professional highlight, because you're living a dream right now. It sounds like.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I don't really feel like I work for a living, so it took me a while to get there. But as one of my close friends said to me one day, I had him on the radio. We were doing an on-location show in Asbury Park. And he turned to me afterwards, and he had said, "You did have a plan, didn't you?" I said, "Well, I did. It just took a while." As far as a career highlight, I can't single out one particular thing. There are moments where you could be at a room or at a show or in somebody's home, and you kind of step outside yourself, or you kind of say to yourself, how did I get here? How did this happen? And those are my favorite moments, whether it's a time, I tell a story about having a turkey sandwich with Bruce at his home, which is a very long story.
That's kind of surreal.
Right, exactly. And that's one of those moments where it's like, how did this happen? I was like making martinis like 5 years ago or whatever time it was. So things like that are sort of, I guess, my personal highlights. I mean, yes, being around the Bruce world and all these years and the backstage stuff, the family of people and it's a family backstage. They're great people, and they've been so welcoming to me. Those moments have been great. Meeting so many famous people and having conversations like I do now with my new show, Growing Up, and having these one-to-ones with people that are known throughout the U.S., some throughout the world. I mean, these are all great moments. I think the best is just the fact that I've been able to have some ideas and bring them to fruition, that they've been able to, I could take something that I was thinking about and actually make it happen. I think those are the best career highlights, creating 2 radio shows.
All right, let's talk the flip side of that. So obviously, as you said, at one point you did quit from Sirius, and you had some lowlights in your career. So was there, because it's not, for those who want to get into the business, it's not all champagne and roses, right? So there's also the point where you say to yourself, is it even worth it? And do I want to quit? So was there a moment or a couple of moments where in the career you said to yourself, I'm done, I can't take it anymore?
No. The one thing that I've always prided myself on in this industry is persistence. I guess that's sort of my sports upbringing is, if you want to be good at something, you have to keep working at it. So that was always, there are times when you're like, why am I doing this? Especially in the beginning when you're making no money and you're working, you're missing holidays and you're missing events because, you're working Christmas Day or you're working Thanksgiving and you're not with your family and everybody and all your other friends are celebrating with their families and stuff. But you're doing this because you love what you do. I don't regret anything. I think the only thing I might have done differently would be, I think my education should have been different. I wish I went to a better school. I wish I had a little more knowledge of how the industry worked before I tried to go out and pursue it. That was that was a very frustrating time because I had no direction. So, this is no secret. Many people in our industry went to locally here in the New York metro area. Well, you either went to like Seton Hall, which was known for their radio station, or everybody went to Syracuse University because Syracuse had this.
Or Fordham,
right. What the hell did I know? I didn't know any of that existed. I didn't know any. When I tell you I knew absolutely nothing, I knew absolutely nothing. And I had no, people looked at me like, you want to, like, people, how do you get into, like, people like me don't get into radio. That's sort of how it was looked at or perceived. And like I said, I wish I had done more research, but it was hard to do research back then for things like that because you didn't know. Like I said, that might be the only thing I wish I might have done differently because it might have given me a different head start in the career. But listen, it all works out for a reason, right?
For sure. And I think it's been my experience that people with heart, confidence, and passion, things find a way of working themselves out. And clearly you're one of those people who wound up in the right place. As you look forward, and I know you're in a wonderful place right now, but what does the future hold for Jim Rotolo?
Well, it's funny you say that because I was sitting down and I've sort of found myself in this hobby. I don't know if it's a hobby. I don't know how you describe it, but it's something that I've been kind of passionate about over the past few years. Personal growth and development. And it's something that's not very popular here in the U.S. And it's something that I think is very important for people that struggle with different things. And I've had friends of mine that have gone through some stuff, and myself included. And it's something that I think more people should be aware of, and how there's ways you can take care of yourself better, both mentally and physically. And I've been talking with a lot of different experts, and I'm thinking about starting my own podcast in regards to that. Something different,
really?
Yeah. I mean, much like the same you guys, talking with me and others about their stories, there's a journey that we all go through, and there's a lot of people that don't get to achieve things for many different reasons. And, you can change your mindset by doing a few different things if you look at things a lot differently, and there's ways to go about doing that. But a lot of it is taking ownership on yourself and learning how to focus away from negative aspects of your life and turning them around and working at it. And that's what I mean by personal growth and development. And, a lot of people choose not to do that. They rather, take pills or, avoid the uncomfortable stuff. And that's sort of where I want to maybe go into. I mean, I love music and I love what I do right now, and I will continue to do that. But this is sort of something that has piqued my interest over the past few years, So I've talked with several doctors and other experts in this industry, and I just feel like it's something that's not been talked about here in the U.S. So I'm thinking about bringing a podcast and bringing some of these people on and having some of these conversations. So stay tuned for that.
It's a great topic.
Yeah, that's a great topic. And I personally have, been touched a couple times recently by similar stories. So it would certainly be valuable and interesting to hear all kinds of different perspectives around that. So Jim, good luck with that and good luck with everything you're doing. Can you quickly go through a list of the different programs and the different places that people can find you?
Sure. So my weekly all request show, The Wild and the Innocent with Jim Rotolo, is Fridays 6 East, 3 West. We do that for 2 hours every Friday. It's a lot of fun. You call in at 877-70-BRUCE, which is 702-7. Yeah, 8. I always say it every day. 877-702-7823. That's a lot of fun. I have a show called Growing Up where I sit down and have a conversation with Bruce's more notable fans. I just talked with Allison Williams. We had a great conversation. That's going to be coming up soon. I talked with Penn Jillette, Ralph Macchio, Judd Apatow, all hardcore Bruce fans, and that's always fun talking with them. And I get a little bit of their story as well along the way. So that you can find. It'll be there. All those shows are on demand on the SXM app. Just search E Street Radio, and you'll find the listings there. And then you can hear me weekdays, 9 to noon East, and also 5 to 8 East. And everything else that comes along the way, I'll let you guys know. Jim Rotolo on Instagram, at Jim Rotolo on Twitter. And The Wild and the Innocent with Jim Rotolo is the show's Facebook page. And you can always find me on Facebook as Jim Rotolo.
Awesome. And the one question I have to ask you as the resident Bruce fan on this program.
Yes.
You may or may not air before the first show coming up in Tampa. Do you have a prediction for what the first show or first song of the tour is going to be?
It's funny you ask that, Larry, because that was a topic a few weeks ago. So I will tell you what I think the opening, and not only will I tell you what the song is, I'm going to give you the scenario of how it's going to open. This is in my own little warped mind.
And the best part about this is that it might air after things happen, so we get to see if you're right.
Right. I could be completely not even close.
Do we want to put money on this?
No, but who knows? So here's what I'm thinking, right? The crowd's there. Everybody's, super high and can't wait for this, show. The walk-on music's happening. Lights go down. Arena's completely dark. Band takes the stage. You can kind of see them, but you can't. They all get to their spots. You hear the opening drums. The crowd's building up, and then all the lights go on, and you see Bruce sing the opening lines. I hear the sound of your guitar. Ghost will be the first song.
Interesting.
Of the tour.
Okay. That has been my thought, too. I think it will be something from that album. And what else would it be other than Ghosts?
Burnin' Train, possibly.
I love that song.
Me too.
Love that song.
Yeah, we start the Wild and the Innocent every week with that. I've made that song sort of the unofficial theme of the show.
Love it. So
look at you two.
So Ghost is the prediction.
That's my prediction, yes.
Okay. Well, we will circle back around and find out whether or not you called it right very, very soon.
All right.
So Jim, with that, thank you for joining us today.
Jim.
Thank you, guys. It's great to talk with you, and hopefully we'll all get together, a beer.
Let's get some drinks.
Love that.
we got to get together real soon, Jimmy.
All right, sounds good, guys. Thanks again for having me. All right.
Thank you for coming on.
Take care.
Well, another great conversation for us. Thank you so much to Jim for joining us. And for all the Springsteen fans out there, I think we're going to hold him accountable, and we're going to come back around to see whether or not he gets his prediction of Ghosts right. My guess is that he is, so I guess we'll see. But I'm obviously very excited for the tour.
I'm telling you, you guys should put money on it. We should put money on this.
I may send him a text right now.
Yeah, Jim he's impressive, isn't he? I mean, we talked about what a great guy he is. I heard so many lessons in this interview. He wasn't afraid to pound the pavement to look for a job. I mean, nowadays you would do that differently. It'd be internet, it would be contacts, LinkedIn, things like that. But man, he just had this perseverance that he deserves everything he gets at this point in his life, because here's a guy who who kind of was giving it away for free, teaching other people how to be great radio talk show hosts. And he had the gumption, the wherewithal to kind of step back, step away, reassess, and reinvent himself. And I think that's impressive when you talk about a career path, because he already had his foot in the door, but was smart enough to take a step back and look at it from a different perspective. And I think that's a great way to go. And it's a real lesson there for you.
The one thing I was very surprised that he said was, that there are things he would change, right? I mean, we've talked to a lot of people thus far, and most of them say, I really wouldn't change much. I really wouldn't change much of anything. But he said, I think there are changes that I think I would make, and one of them would be where I went to school. He's absolutely right. There are 3 schools in this area, 3 or 4 schools in this area where there is an alumni base which has deep roots in media in this area. I went to one of them. And that was one of the reasons why I went into the business, because I knew there were people there who could get you in the door. So what he did in a lot of ways is pretty remarkable, being able to bang the door down and get his foot in the door. I actually, you know what? Jim Rotolo is a really good guy, but what he really is a guy who shows a lot of perseverance. And there aren't a lot of people who have a lot of spirit to do that. And I have all kinds of respect for Jim Rotolo and what he's done, because he really has turned himself into one of the better broadcasters in this industry, being a good guy and staying true to who he is.
For sure. And, there's something to be said for keep moving your feet, keep going, et cetera, and things will break your way. And that certainly happened for Jim. He made this opportunity happen for himself by just by keeping at it. The other thing that I found, so compelling, which I wanted to get to in the conversation, was the sense of responsibility in a way that he has for this Springsteen community. I mean, he's in a very unique place where he's a facilitator, and he's sort of like this glue between all these different people who have such a love and a passion for Springsteen and his music. And he's in a unique spot that very few people are in. So to hear that perspective and to hear what that's like, to me, I found very, very interesting.
I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought it up. And I also think, taking a concept, the whole, tailgating concept, right, for this venue and kind of having that vision, I think is super interesting that was his vision. I never would have considered that, but now it all makes sense that he gives you the real story, right? Having that tailgating vision of how can we all get ready and get amped up for this together, and then bringing it to fruition. I think it says a lot about who he is and how he was able to take a vision and make it reality.
There is one question I did want to ask him, which I never had a chance. You want to know what it was?
Go.
Right.
What is it?
So I forget someone would say something for God's sake.
Yeah.
So the question is, how many times have you met Bruce down the Jersey Shore during this time of year?
There you go.
Because I'm telling you, there are so many pictures of people from Jersey who meet this guy down the shore, and it is down the shore. I'm saying it correctly. There are so many people who meet Bruce down the shore this time of year, because he's there this time of year, walking down the Jersey shores, because nobody's around. He's not gonna get mobbed, and it's unbelievable how many pictures you'll see of Bruce fans or just people from Jersey, etc., who put up pictures up on social media of just meeting Bruce, just randomly just meeting him. It's unbelievable. He's so accessible. He's so accessible to his fans. He's Jersey through and through. That's why I love the guy.
And I think Jim hit on one of Larry Samuel's biggest dreams, which is to share a turkey sandwich with Bruce Springsteen.
No. His dream is to have the bat phone number.
He wants the bat phone. That's right.
Well,
the bat phone.
That was going to be my question. If he's on air, is there like a bat phone in the corner of the studio where if it rings, it's Bruce and you've done something wrong, and you got to work out whatever your problem is. So anyway, with that, Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. What an incredible conversation. On behalf of Tushar Saxena, Larry Shea, and me, Larry Samuels, thank you again for joining this episode of No Wrong Choices. If after listening you've thought of someone who could be a great guest, please let us know by sending us a note via the contact page of our website at nowrongchoices.com. While there, please be sure to check out our blog and explore other great episodes while signing up to become a member of our community. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Threads, and X. TikTok is up and content has begun rolling out. We'll be back with another episode next week. Before then, always remember, there are no wrong choices on the road to success, only opportunities, because we learn from every experience.